Hello there, and welcome to a bracket edition of the Buckeye Fever podcast. My name is Dave Holmes. Finally, we have real rankings and a real hypothetical, so it's not really real at all, bracket to talk about. But we're going to get to that. We're going to talk about Purdue as well. Clay Hall's going to stop by as I unload a hot take about the Boilermakers' history. But real quick, let's just put a bow on Penn State. Last week I came on the show and said, a lot of you were freaking out. Get rid of Ryan Day, get rid of you wanted to torch the program because of the ugly win over Nebraska. And I just basically said, let's pump the brakes. Let's stay calm and rational. That's what college football fans do best, right? What a calm, rational group. But no, I said if you go to Happy Valley and you win, you'll feel good about your team. And that's where we are. I think Ohio State went. They handled their business. I think Will Howard needs to protect the ball a little better for a guy who is supposed to be your oldest leader on the team. So I think that's an issue. When Ryan Day said Will knows that, he's going to be better moving forward. But the Buckeyes did what they had to do. They got to win. They're in good position. So let's talk about these college football rankings. I will run down the top 12 teams. If the season ended today, and it doesn't, but if it did, this would be your playoff field. Boise State 12, Alabama 11, Notre Dame 10, BYU 9, Indiana 8, Tennessee 7, Penn State 6, Texas 5, Miami 4, Georgia 3. The Buckeyes come in number 2, and Oregon number 1. Now, the most important thing to remember, and this is confusing, the Buckeyes are number 2 in the rankings, but they do not get one of the 4 bye weeks. And that's because the committee is giving automatic byes to the conference champions, the 4 highest-ranked conference champions, which I get because they want to take a little bit of the subjectivity out of it and have a clear-cut standard that you meet. You are a conference champ. If you're one of the top 4 in the rankings, you get a bye. And I get that. On the other side, it's a little dumb. It really is, because it's kind of dumb that Ohio State's number 2 and they don't get a bye. But I get it. Whatever. Okay. So if this bracket started right now, you would have, in the first round, the Buckeyes would play Boise State, and the winner of that would play BYU. And my initial reaction is, that might be better than having a bye. The chance to play Boise and BYU. I mean, which one of those schools is not like the other? Boise State, BYU, and Ohio State. It's by far the easiest little mini 3-team region in the bracket. So, look, did the Buckeyes, would they get hosed in this scenario by not getting a bye? Yeah, but they also get a pretty cake draw for those first 2 games. Then you have Indiana, Tennessee, down in Knoxville, and the winner of that plays Oregon. You would have Alabama play Texas. The winner of that gets Miami. Notre Dame against Penn State. The winner of that gets Georgia. And I have always been a guy who says, who cares about these rankings? They're so dumb in early November to debate college football rankings, he said on his own podcast, Debating College Football Rankings. Here's why I think it's a little different. Because I am a sucker for a good bracket. Baby, I love me a bracket. I love the NCAA tournament for that reason. I love the visual element to it, the projection. So I love that this is tangible now. And my favorite thing is, when they put this 12-team thing together, my favorite element was the home playoff games in round 1. Think about how fun would that be to host Boise. You get to host a playoff game. But look at these other matchups. Indiana going down to Knoxville. How about Alabama making the trip to Texas? That is as sexy as it gets. And then you have Notre Dame going to Happy Valley. 1993 called, and they said this is as good as it gets. So that's what I love about this, because you can have a scenario now where it is very possible for Alabama to have to come to Columbus to play a cold weather game, or to have Texas go to Happy Valley and play a winter matchup against the Nittany Lions. So I love that element of it. I really, really do. I don't have too many gripes. If you want me to rip the committee, I'm not going to. I thought Ohio State and Georgia were interchangeable at 2 and 3. I would have no problem either way. I think both of them belong above Miami because I think they're a bit of a pretender. I know the Hoosier fans think they're disrespected at 8. Here's the thing, Indiana. We love you. We're just not buying it until week 11. But if the Hoosiers come to Columbus, and even if they lose, let's say Indiana loses 27-21, then bam, stamp of approval from me that they are for real. It's just so hard, right? It is, I talked about this on episode 1 with preseason rankings, where I said in college football, if you start low, you have to prove you're good beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's sadly the uphill battle that Indiana has. The eyeball test says they're off the charts, but they've yet to play anyone that's very elite. So still a lot of football left to be played. I love looking at this bracket, though. It makes me happy to break these matchups down. But that's enough bracket talk for one day. Coming up next on the Buckeye Fever podcast, Clay Hall joins me. I have a scorching hot take about the Purdue Boilermakers football program that might surprise you. That's coming up next on the Buckeye Fever podcast. Yeah, this week we turn our attention to the Purdue Boilermakers coming to the shoe. And, Purdue, look, it hasn't been the best for their football program in recent times, but I have a hot take here, and we normally aren't hot take artists on the Football Fever podcast, but let's try to catch up with the times. Let's go hot take that. I think Purdue has the best quarterback pedigree of any school in NCAA history. Now, to challenge me, or maybe even agree, let's bring in former sports director here at ABC6, Clay Hall, our buddy. All right, Clay, so am I crazy for thinking that the Purdue Boilermakers, despite all their deficiencies maybe in recent times,
Yeah.
if I look at their alumni list of Drew Brees, Hall of Fame, caliber player, Len Dawson, guy who I believe was an Alliance, Ohio native. I think he's from
Super Bowl winner
with the Chiefs. I believe he was my neck of the woods, grew up in Northeast Ohio. Bob Greasy.
Yep.
I believe he had a game in 70 or a season in 72 where they did not lose a game. Jim Everett, some call him Chris.
Jim Rome famously got the table dumped on his head.
And I understand this last name, Kyle Orton, is still, he at least played meaningful games in the NFL. So to me, that's a pretty good top 5. What do you think? Do you think Purdue is the best, or would you throw another school out there for consideration?
They're top 3.
Okay.
Soft spot for Lenny Dawson. We lived in Kansas City. Chiefs fan, used to go to the games. 64 toss power trap, 65 toss. Hank Stram.
Yeah.
They beat the Vikes. I think it was Super Bowl. It's dark ages.
This is why you bring Clay Hall on here. These are the things that Joshua Perry and Tyvis Powell cannot speak to. The 1960s Chiefs.
Senility, whatever you call it. Miami, to me, would be close or above.
Oh, okay.
You have Jim Kelly, turned the program around.
4 Super Bowls.
Bernie Kosar.
Oh, you don't have to preach Bernie to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Touching first Miami National Championship. Steve Walsh, 87 National Championship. Testaverde, first Miami Heisman winner.
Wow. 80s were very good to the Canes.
Bingo. Gino Torretta.
Won a Heisman in 93, I believe.
26-1 as a starter. That's Ohio State numbers.
Yeah.
And get this. As I began to research this, they put Ken Dorsey at the top of that list.
Wow.
I wouldn't have done so.
Wow.
86 TDs, 25 picks.
That's a good shout out. Miami is, you know what? The 80s, my goodness. To produce Jim Kelly and Bernie and Testaverde. Oh my
Erickson,
goodness.
they all won big.
I think in recent times, if we're talking recently, the last decade is Oklahoma. Recently, because you have Baker Mayfield.
You
got a cup of coffee with Jalen Hurts. You had Kyler Murray. Go back a little farther. You got Sam Bradford becomes the number 1 overall pick. Jason White was in the Heisman race. So they've been very good. Kind of Lincoln Riley's become the quarterback whisperer, and during his time there, he was successful. Anyone else like an old school team that might...
LSU.
Oh, okay.
Because I have some history with the SEC, but you got Burrow at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Burt Jones, way back, great Colts quarterback, NFL quarterback. Major bust Jamarcus Russell, but a tremendous college player.
Yeah, and there's a debate there. Are we counting this as guys who went on to the pros or were great in college? Because Jamarcus Russell was Cam Newton in his own way. He was unbelievable.
Wasn't it a stat you heard a million times? From his knees, he could throw it at 90 something.
That's right.
I mean, he could go one end zone to the other.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Some guys that I saw play because I am so old. Tommy Hodson.
Yeah.
Josh Booty. There's a lot of booty at LSU. But excuse me.
That's what I hear.
But I mean, and there was one at LSU, USC as well. I had John David Booty. They're all related.
Yeah.
And a guy because maybe my dad brought it up. Y.A. Tittle.
Oh.
That is Yelberton Abraham Tittle.
It was Abraham was what the A was, huh?
Yeah.
I've always wondered all these years.
48, played for the Niners, Giants, and Colts.
Yeah.
Famous picture. He's bleeding from his forehead.
It's one of the most iconic photos in NFL history.
You just got to throw Y.A. Tittle in there.
Yeah.
USC was another.
Yeah, because
a lot of guys.
You got what? Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart, Mark Sanchez.
Bingo.
Was Rodney Peete a
Rodney
Trojan?
Pete.
Yeah.
Wife Holly Robinson Pete.
Hanging with Mr. Cooper reference.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Little, and you got Barkley. What about Marinovich?
Oh, Todd Marinovich.
You were like 2 years old when Marinovich
Okay,
was
so
playing.
then he busted with the Raiders, correct? I believe he became
Correct.
a Raider. Yes.
Correct.
I feel like
driven by his father.
I feel like I have a rookie card. That was a hot rookie card for about 6 months before he was exposed in the NFL. I think I have a Todd Marinovich in my basement somewhere. That's a good one. Notre Dame has a good list of quarterbacks.
Oh, man.
Between Joe Montana, you got the Joes,
Yeah.
Montana and Theismann. Brady Quinn ended up being
For sure.
a very solid player. You got Paul Hornung, if you want to go really old school there.
Yeah.
Rick Meyer at one point
Yes.
was a thing. He was what, with Drew Bledsoe in the draft? I think was at the debate. It was Bledsoe Meyer. I believe.
I wonder why Notre Dame did not leap out to me.
Yeah.
Because to start with Montana, and there's a lot.
And so let's bring it back here and close with Ohio State's funny because 15 years ago, Ohio State was almost a joke. Fans love to poke at that. Oh, yeah.
You don't have any NFL.
Who's your best quarterback in the NFL? And look, there was a case to be made. I mean, who was the best Buckeye quarterback for some time? Tom Zach?
Mike Tom Zach.
Yeah, Mike Tomzak. A guy who was basically a backup for most of his tenure, much of his tenure at least.
Played a long time.
He played a long time, got the pension.
Yeah.
Got the pension.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, the last 10 years, it's the perception's totally different. The Buckeyes now are
4 in a row.
they're probably in the top 3 to 5 current era to produce quarterbacks.
No question. You can't slight them now because of Ryan Day. Because when they got Day, he said, this is what this is my thing.
Yeah.
This is how I'm going to make you better. Frankly, I think he's the quarterback whisperer.
Yeah. Great stuff, as always, from Clay Hall on the Buckeye Fever podcast. Okay, let's talk about this Purdue team. Started out the season, Boilermakers, big dreams. They beat Indiana State convincingly, the fighting Larry Birds. And then they've lost 7 straight since. This is a bad Purdue team. Now, 2 of those losses are in overtime. We'll give them that. They played Illinois tough, played Northwestern tough. They just love the state of Illinois, apparently. They also lost to Notre Dame 66-7. 66-7. Now, I went and checked. That Notre Dame roster did not include the 4 Horsemen, did not include Tim Brown, Paul Hornung, Joe Montana, Jerome Bettis. It was your run-of-the-mill Fighting Irish team, and they lost 66-7. So earlier this week, Ryan Day was asked about Purdue, and he was almost getting, I don't know if annoyed's the right word, but he was reluctant to keep talking about Penn State because you don't want to inflate your team's ego, right? So he started gushing about Purdue's offense. Oh, and he said, if our boys, if our guys think that you can just roll out of bed and just beat this Purdue team, they're in for a rude awakening. Nah, Ryan, I love you, but they're not. No rude awakening. It'll be a very, very polite awakening. It'll be like you're taking a nice nap in the middle of the afternoon and someone comes up and just taps you lightly on the shoulder and says, hey, are you ready to get up? It'll be that polite of an awakening. There's no rude awakening. This Purdue team's really bad. There's a reason the Buckeyes are favored by 38. I mean, this is a bye week where they make you play a football game. We are not going to make them better than they are. Coach Cooper used to say that. Let's not make them better than they are. We're not making these guys better than they are. Okay, yeah, they've shown a little bit of offensive potential at times. At times. Their quarterback is Hudson Card. We talked about Purdue quarterbacks in the last segment with Clay Hall. Their quarterback is Hudson Card, which sounds like a frat boy's technique to get a girl. Hudson Card. Like you come up to your bro on a Friday morning and say, hey, I saw you talking to Alyssa last night. How'd you pull that off? Did you play the Hudson Card? Yeah, I did. I played the Hudson Card. I said, what's up? My name's Hudson. I'm the quarterback. I played the Hudson Card. Hudson Card's the quarterback. Buckeyes favored by 38. This is going to be an easy game. All right, we're not going to make them better than they are. So we look at the final month of the season. You have Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, Michigan. Bonkers that the final month of the season, the game that scares you is the Hoosiers, but that's where we are in 2024. That's where we are. The Penn State win saved the season. I mean, and Ryan Day mentioned it. Will Howard mentioned it on Tuesday. They both said, we didn't want to say it out loud, but we knew how big it was. Because now that they beat Penn State, if you win the rest, you're going back to Indianapolis, most likely get another shot at the Ducks, a little closer to home on a neutral field, see if the Buckeyes can get them the second time. But that Penn State win saved the season. How'd you get out of that speeding ticket? I played the Hudson card. Oh. Officer said, sir, do you know how fast you were going? I said, hi, I'm Hudson. I'm the quarterback. Oh. Go ahead, sir. I'll let you off with a warning. He played the Hudson card. Anyway, this Purdue team's trash. The Buckeyes are going to roll them. They're absolutely going to dominate this game. All right, well, that'll do it for us here on the Buckeye Fever podcast. Next week is a fun one because we are going to Wrigley Field to play Northwestern. How do you make a Northwestern game interesting? You put it in the home of the Cubs and play it at Wrigley Field. We're looking forward to that one for sure. Thank you so much for joining us on this week of the Buckeye Fever podcast. I'm Dave Holmes. Subscribe, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate you, and we'll see you back here next week.